Hey, Josh here. So I just went through something which seems to be commonly referred to as a dark night of the soul. And so I'm just kind of coming out the other side of it. And so I thought I would make a video about it because that's what I do. A dark night of the soul, I looked it up. I mean, it is said to be, it's like a phase of passive purification of the spirit. And it was originally a poem by a 16th century mystic and poet known as Saint John of the Cross. But in today's day and age, it has essentially come to signify a crisis of faith or a difficult, painful period in one's life. And that's sort of what I'm going through right now. I mean, I've been going through a detox, for one, which has been challenging, from a number of things, from anything that I was putting in my body, which really didn't need to be there. So right now I'm on a healing diet. So I've been eating a high raw diet, but there's a difference between a healthy diet and a healing diet. And I need to heal because I have been on an unhealthy diet for a long time. So I'm on 100% raw. I mean, because that is, if you really, really need to heal, it is 100% raw. There is no bones about it. I've done cleanses and stuff like that before, and there's absolutely zero cooked food allowed. So, and it's challenging, to only eat essentially fruit. Yeah, I mean, I even basically just eat fruit, but which includes avocados and tomatoes and nuts and seeds and, blueberries. It is fruit season right now. So it's not like, there is an abundance of healthy, fresh, organic, local, dirt grown, just awesome fruit. But still, then when you eat that way, you get confronted with, essentially addiction, because of how, what cooked food tastes like, how satiating it is. We eat for comfort. And so anytime that I'm sad, it really fills you up. You can eat the stuff, it makes you feel warm, you feel good, you feel there's it's comforting, comfort food. And so to stop all of that, so you cut that out. I mean, I cut out coffee because I go through phases with it, and honestly, sometimes it comes back into my life, but then it's like when I don't have it, I notice how much it really upsets my energy. And that's just me. I mean, I am, if you know about like Ayurveda, I'm a Vata type, so I'm already airy. I don't need things that like really that aggravate my that make that element of myself more. I don't need to be more out of it anyways. So coffee isn't very grounding, but at times it is, because sometimes my energy does go down, it gets low, and I find myself wanting a coffee to help bring myself back up. But then it's essentially a crutch. I'm compensating for other things that are going on in my life. And so also I've been hanging out with friends and stuff, and so my body is intoxicating from different stimulants and detoxifying from stimulants and intoxicants and stuff like that. I've had some beers with buddies over a little while, and so coming off absolutely everything all at the same time, and then moving into my car, which has been challenging as well, because I was in a toxic environment and I had to go through a process of my own where I was able to let go of some of what I was holding on to in regards to what I had been through in over the course of the time that I was in a different living situation. And so, I find myself in this really challenging place where I now need to I need to finish building this van, but it's like I got so much stuff that's going on. I just kind of got depressed. And because I was feeling very overwhelmed, very not sure, lost. And it was challenging. I had to remove myself from a situation of being around other people because I just had so much going on internally that I was not interacting with people in a very good way, like meaning I was you just at a loss of words constantly and in my head and not sure, I spent a bit of time just thinking like, what have I done? Because like living in a car, it is not, it is marginally better than living in a toxic environment because, this in itself is sort of a toxic environment because I have a job and I have to be around this town. I can't just go off into the bush and it's just like, I'm tied to certain things. I still have certain ties. So it's like, I'm not like as free as I might like to have think that I would have been or could have been or am going to be, at least not right now. And so, and then it's just challenging, not, it's like, what did I do? I can't believe I find myself in this situation again where I'm living in a car. It's ridiculous, for a man of my age to be doing this, at least in my eyes, never mind anybody else, but I just think it's ridiculous that I am. And so I start, this negative thinking where it's just like, this is what I've come to, this is where I'm at, this is what I add up to, it's just like, man, it's frustrating when all my other friends have houses and wives and children, and it seems like they have a lot going for them, and I try not to compare myself to anything that anybody else is doing, but it's hard to not even notice, to not recognize that I'm living in a car and it's not exactly ideal. It is a huge what do you call it? I don't know, I can't remember the word, but it's compromise is the word. It's a sacrifice, and I know that, and that's a part of it. When I think about it, it's like, okay, I'm sacrificing comfort, I'm sacrificing familiarity, I'm sacrificing having a roof over my head that isn't a car, right? And having space to move, with the intention of like moving forward in life. But because I was dealing with all this stuff, and I was in a place where it was like I found it really difficult to make any decisions. So even though I kind of arrived at a new phase of life, I found it really challenging to do anything, to move forward on what I needed to. And so I spent some time just alone, practicing quite a bit of yoga because it was just something that I could focus on to take my mind off of what was going through it and whatnot. And and it, I had some really negative thoughts, self-defeating thoughts, and just like it was challenging because you gotta, for myself, it's like I gotta be really careful who I share any of those thoughts with, even though it's like I need somebody to talk to. And it would really help to have, like, you know, an ear, somebody who would just listen and not try to fix, right? Because some people, if they don't really understand you, then they get the wrong impression, right? You say something and then they you know, and then it turns into something else. Then all of a sudden you're explaining it, and then it's just, yeah. And so, you know, luckily I do have my cousin, and I talked to her for a bit, and I was able to tell her stuff. It's like, you know, I felt like just crawling in a hole, you know, and I did essentially, like in this car. I mean, I just spent the day lying there, and there was nothing that I could do but have negative thoughts. I didn't even want to get up and go swimming or anything, or embrace life, or do anything, you know, like maybe formulate a plan, get organized, you know, go to a library, work on my book, anything. It's just like, you know, when, I guess for myself, when I'm feeling, when my energy is low, and I don't mean physical energy, I guess emotional, right? When I'm feeling negative emotions or feelings, and I'm, yeah, you know, not happy with where I'm at and what I'm going through, and I just am feeling defeated and, you know, kind of like a loser. You know, I feel just like, yeah, like lost, like a loser, like, you know, whatever that is, right? I don't, you know, I certainly wouldn't label anybody else such a thing, right? So it's, but that's what it is, you know, when you're in a negative mind state, is irrational thoughts. You just say things without really any, you know, it's not about logic, and it's not about examining things thoroughly and really, you know, taking everything into account. It's more about just, this is how I'm feeling right now, and that's all that I know, and I'm just barely getting by, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm freaking out, and this sucks. And but, you know, for myself, I've been through detoxes like this before, where I've been able to recognize that the path that I was on was not serving me anymore, and I needed to make some changes in order to move in a direction that is ultimately going to take me to where I need to go. And, you know, it usually takes about 3 days for myself. I used to call it the Jesus principle, because it's like I felt like I would die for 3 days, and then I would be reborn after that. And it was very much my experience this time as well. I mean, because it takes time once you stop putting things in your system, stimulants, to renormalize, to come to a place where, I don't know, I guess your hormones and stuff are balanced, where serotonin is, you know, your body's producing these things naturally, as opposed to being artificially induced. And, you know, with the coffee, coming off of the coffee too, I mean, just everything. But yeah, I mean, and then today, you know, when I got up in the morning, I was still struggling. I mean, today is day 3, and but, you know, by now, which is the afternoon, or it's actually the beginning of the evening, it's probably just about 6 o'clock, and I'm starting to feel a little more like myself again, you know, and I can tell because I'm interested in coming out of it. Like, I'm not just giving myself over to the negativity, to the you know, because I don't believe in like, you know, pretending like I'm not feeling that way. If I feel a way, I find a way to express it, you know, in a healthy way. And so, yeah, I started feeling like, like listening to music, like maybe doing a little bit of research. So it's like expanding consciousness, looking into things, educating myself, even looking at a bit of social media. So it's like there's for some inspiration, so going in like depression, as I've had it explained to me, it's when you are not finding the answers outside, so you go within. And so that's essentially what my experience was. I had to go within for a few days. I had to remove myself from any kind of social interactions and just kind of focus on getting through the dark night of the soul. I mean, and it was challenging, but on the other side of it, it's like I know why, I start to remember why I did this. And then I start to realize it's like, oh yeah, no, that building a van, it wasn't for no reason. I didn't move out of that house for no reason. I didn't start building this van. It's like not everything that I've done is falling apart. Not everything that I've done is for no reason. I'm not a joke, I'm not a loser. I mean, those are just, negative thoughts that, came. And, I'm not ashamed to say that I can go through a period of time in my life where that's how I feel, where it's just like, why? Yeah. And so I start, seeing the logic in where I'm at. And also, and I start remembering, all of a sudden the philosophical brain starts kicking in, or mind. And it's like I just start looking at things in a much healthier way. I had something to say there, but I can't remember what it was. And now it's just like, okay, pick myself up after that and put one foot in front of the other and, clean up the mess. I did laundry today. I got a little more organized in my stuff and starting to formulate a plan. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to attack the situation so that I can move ahead. And it's like, I really see the logic of having the van. It's just like, holy cow, I need that van, because if I had that as a living space with a stove and like all the solar panels and stuff like that, I would be able to actually have a much higher quality existence than what I am currently experiencing living in a car, because it is very confined. There is not space in here, whereas in the van there is room to practice yoga, as well as a much bigger bed, as well as a stove, as well as all kinds of stuff, windows to open, and so I think it's a bit different. I know I've made videos before about having an existential crisis. I feel like this is a bit different, because for myself, an existential crisis is more, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's just that for me, this is something much shorter. It's like, this is something that has happened because of a number of things that just added up, where I am, and just everything that adds up to going through a rough period, but then it's over very quickly. Whereas an existential crisis for myself usually lasts quite a bit longer, a week or two or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's all that I have to say. I mean, I've talked to a few other people. Another thing too is like the moon cycle. Now, I'm not saying, I would never say that it's that the moon is causing me to have this experience, but I mean, as I'm aware, it's that the moon is it's a reflection of, say, changes that are happening within us. And it's like, I've talked to a few people, and it is this low energy time of the month, coming towards what do you call it, the new moon. And so I'm not the only person who's feeling challenged in this time. I mean, there's a lot going on in life, in the world today, and yeah, some of the challenging thoughts that I was having was just like, I've been working on so many things for so long, and I've never really accomplished anything. Like, I don't have a whole lot to show for everything that I've done. I've worked on a book for over 10 years. Nobody's ever seen it, so, I've even had people say, oh, what book? Doesn't even exist, And like all this yoga stuff, I mean, I've poured my heart and soul into it, and I have nothing to show for it other than, I don't know. I mean, nobody that I know anyways has ever, seen anything materialize from all of the efforts that I've put into stuff. And so, then it's easy, at least for myself, like if you look on social media and stuff like that, there's so many people doing so many things, wonderful things, whatever it is that they're involved with, helping animals, or maybe they got an invention or a business, or they're some kind of an influencer, or whatever it is that they're doing, and it's it's easy to compare yourself to them. I mean, or it's possible anyways. And I remember having this thought where it's just like, I wonder if I missed my time, like if what I have to say, what I have to share just isn't relevant anymore. Maybe I missed the boat, maybe I slept on it, maybe I took too long, or, there's, and whatnot. But then, I guess, like, getting back to like the philosophy, it's just like, or I don't know, maybe it's like spiritual stuff, right? Where it's just like, no, I've done my best. I swear I've put in efforts. Was it like in yoga? It's like, say, like, what is it? Like, your role in what is going on is very minor. When you take into account that you were born into a family, at a certain place, at a certain time, in a certain society, and you went to school, and there was, everything that was going on in that era, and it's just, and then, like, what you got involved with, and because of the times, and on and on and on, it's just like, you really had very little choice in it all. I mean, just because of the environmental factor. I mean, we are subject in a large way to so many different factors. I mean, of course, a spirit incarnate, and like, our parents and stuff, and siblings and all that kind of stuff. But it's just like, at the end of the day, you didn't get to choose any of that stuff, and you do your best with it. So it's just like, having this idea of that I missed the boat, that what I have to share isn't relevant anymore, or because, like, if you flip the script on that, it's, you could just as easily say, well, maybe where you're at and what you're going through is not relevant yet. And I've had people say that to me as well, because they're, I don't know, it seems like, I don't know if it's just because it's the way that I look at things, but it seems like we're going through, sort of a renaissance. We're going through an awakening where people are becoming much more aware of a lot of things, and starting to live more in harmony with nature, and to clean up the messes that we've made, and to respect one another and stuff like that. I mean, and those are certainly the lines that I'm working along. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can still contribute something to this world, and my life isn't a loss, right? And I know that it's not, right? But it's just just being honest about the way that I might think about things when I'm going through a challenging time. When those negative thoughts are coming through, and don't know what to do. But yeah, so all I can say, it's a rainy day here today. There's a couple days of rain, which is challenging. Again, living in a car, it gets humid in a car and you can't open the windows. There's literally nothing to do or nowhere to go, you in your car. It sucks. Yeah, I'm gonna just put one foot in front of the other and continue on, have faith that all of it adds up to something, and that the things that I guess the situation that I put myself in, it's not like I screwed up, because I've been here before, and certainly when I look back on everything that happened the last time I was living in my car, it was not all for nothing. Yeah, it was challenging. No, it was not ideal. But did it need to happen? It sure does seem like it, I can't really help who I am. And, the last time it was the same thing. There was a toxic living environment, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I do my best to stay away from stressful situations and toxic people or environments, because I don't think that it's good for my health. And sometimes it lands me living in my car, and it seems silly, a little absurd maybe, right? But what do you do? I'm sure that in time, I'm not going to live in my car for a long time, not even like a year. I'm not going to do what I did last time. So, I think in time I'll look back at this and it'll be funny, that just how it all played out and whatnot. And yeah, so that's my dark night of the soul.